Franklin County Commissioners meeting, Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018.
Good morning. It is 9 a.m. on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018. And this is the regular weekly board meeting of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. And let's go ahead and just put them on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I put you on hold for just a moment?
You can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All three commissioners are here. Just for the record, this is the first Tuesday meeting since our change from Wednesdays. Keith Johnson, County Administrator, is here as well. First item on the agenda is the call. Please with a pledge, and then we'll move on to our phone call from our legislative reps.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to legislative representation out of Olympia, Mr. Jim Potts and Zach Kennedy. Gentlemen, are you with us still?
They're not.
Well, I would move on to other business, but that's the only agenda item. We'll give them a minute.
Good morning. This is Keith Johnson from Franklin County with the Board of County Commissioners in attendance.
Howdy, gentlemen. We lost you there. Isn't that weird?
Well, yeah. I guess weird's the word. It's our first Tuesday meeting after changing from Wednesdays. I hope it's not some kind of an omen. So, Zach, that sounds like you.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm there as well.
And Jim is there as well.
Morning, guys.
Are you able to hear everybody okay? We got the phone a little farther away than usual.
Well, these speakers should pick up.
Yeah. I will, okay.
Okay. As long as you're good. Just want to make sure. So, I understand we're going to get an update on what's happening in Olympia. Jim, it was good seeing you in Olympia the other day. Appreciate the time that we got to spend. What can you tell us for the good of the board?
Well, after you left, things flew into gear, and we got the tax to Hurstville and the capital budget that night. And it all went really quick once they started. The Senate passed the water bill first and transmitted it immediately to the House. And I don't think it was 5 minutes and the House was taking it up. So, they went really quick. Did the same with the capital budget. The one thing that was a little different from most years is they passed the bond bill for the capital budget before they passed the budget. Usually they do it the way around. They got an all down, and the governor signed both bills on Friday, and now we're off chasing all these other bills trying to get hearings on and see where that goes.
So, Jim, last I heard from the leader of the Senate, Senator Nelson, was that there were certain WRIs, water resource inventory areas in the state that were going to be subject to different levels. They were mostly over along the Nooksack drainage and in northwestern and they were at about 950, and then we had some up in the northeast in the Okanagan, Stevens, Pend Oreille area at about 350, but those were due to not having been full planning counties, and most importantly, Franklin County is essentially unchanged in terms of our unpermitted wells. Do I have all that right? Did any of that change after about 5 p.m. Thursday?
No, I think it was all agreed to there. And I believe we had a pretty good breakdown on it in the email that went to you.
Right.
Should have covered most of that stuff, yes. So I think, at least in all areas, you can go back to building and one thing or another. Some places got more restrictions than others, naturally, but most of the eastern counties come out pretty good in this thing.
Well, didn't Okanagan, Stevens, Pend Oreille all have areas, wires at 350 gallons a day? Whereas the current unlimited, I think, is 5,000, and the west side, they were like 950. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong, but it seems to me they took a pretty big hit.
I think the hardest hit county over there of the counties we deal with is Pend Oreille.
Right.
They got one wire and it got hit pretty hard, but there they can still do some stuff.
Okay.
They've got the extra $500 fee when you get a permit and a few of those things.
And the Pend Oreille, for example, they're at a 3,000 gallons per day, as opposed to the 5,000 for the standard non-permitted well.
Was there anybody at 350? Zach, that's the number that had been floated around, and that was the one
So
that
the
was concerning.
350 is a $350 permit to ecology that they're going to be able to require from ecology, I guess, annually to operate their well.
Yeah. All right, I'll go back and look. I had in my notes from Laura Berg that there was a 350 gallon per day limitation on one of the wires, but I'll go do my own research on that.
Well, so there is an option on there for specific areas, and that's on a case-by-case basis. So it is entirely possible that you could be 350 gallons a day
Yeah, okay.
on a case-by-case, but that's not listed on any of the spreadsheets we've got yet.
Yeah. Well, the reason that it's of such interest to me is that as a full planning county, Franklin County didn't get hit with any of these limitations, but I think that anyone who sees this as the final word on this is forgetting their history. I think we'll see a progressive, over time, addition of other counties. So those.
We haven't seen the end of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
No, that's for sure. Somebody probably going to end up taking it to court again as we move ahead. But water's been around a long time, and there are always problems with it.
Yeah, they show, your bullet points the other day were those with watershed plans can use up to 3,000, and without the watershed, 950.
And that was the western wires. I was concerned that there were a couple over in the northeast that were smaller, but that's okay. We don't need to spend time on it because it's not going to directly affect our county.
I do have a map here, and it does show Stevens and Okanagan have the in-stream counties with in-stream flows, and the rest of them do not. Now, I think that's one of the stipulations was in-stream flows also. My question was, that state. Now, we in Franklin County, I'm not sure, but I think there's some federal in-stream rules. I'm wondering if that's going to affect anything in the future.
I've heard about that. That hasn't been something they're talking about, but I'm sure it could.
Well, that's just my only concern. I do agree that we don't have state, but federal maybe in the future. So it's something to watch for, but at this point, it looks good for us.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone watching that issue in the last 48 hours, I think the federal government has determined that the waters of the U.S. ruling will be subject to review by federal district court, not by regional appeals courts. I'm drawing a blank on the term, but anyway, that I would think would probably give some relief anyway. on Lotus. What else out of Olympia that we need to know, gentlemen?
Well, we got a bill or two up this week that deals with fair funding. The Ag Committee on Thursday. And one of those bills is patterned after the California model, where sales tax is collected and sales at the fair would go into the fair fund instead of the general fund over here, the state portion. And so they're trying to get a little more stability into fair funding and not have to depend on the allocation out of the general fund every year. So that's at least first time we've had anything movement towards stable fair funding in quite a few years that I can remember.
Jim, you think that legislation has legs? Is it going to go anywhere?
I think it might, because up to the current $2 million that we get, it's kind of a trade-off. The sales tax go into the fair funding, and they would retain the same amount of away from that $2 million. But we're guaranteed the $2 million. But they think that it'll drive well above the $2 million. So I think it has a chance.
And do you recall if that funding, assuming it goes into the fair fund, would it be reapportioned based on how much a fair put into it? I'm thinking that there might be a money shift here where the large regional fairs do better and some of the smaller ones fare worse because they don't put in as much. Any insight?
I've had that thought as well, and I haven't got the research yet to really address that question.
Okay. Well, speaking of California models, you referenced that with the fair bill. What about those 4 California-style firearms-related bills? Anything on those?
Well, I don't see too much happening with these firearms bills because there's enough Democrats in both the House and the Senate that I don't think will support either of those, so I don't see too much happening with them. But I could be wrong, and I don't think that they'll go very far.
Yeah, well, it was a good conversation we had with Representative Lubbock at the Wassac reception, and he seemed open-minded on the subject, so I'd invite you to kind of keep him on your short list of folks to stay in touch with, too.
Right, and I did check with his office yesterday to see if I could get you some time when you're over here, but Wednesday afternoons and Thursdays are bad for him. He's in committee all the time. But she told me that, you know, if we need to see him, we can probably pull him out of committee and talk to him. And he's got it on his calendar to be at our next Wassac reception if he isn't on the floor.
Good.
By then they might be doing night floor sessions. You know, it's interesting, all the years I've been here, I've never seen them work at night on the floor in the first or in the second week of a session. And they worked several nights last week, and they've got several nights slated for this week already.
You think folks are planning ahead, trying to avoid staying longer than planned?
I think so. The Democrats in the Senate, at least, are saying they're going to get out of here on time. And they should be able to if they get the supplemental operating budget done. I don't see too much else they have to do.
Well, if the U.S. Senate can vote at 1 in the morning, I would think the State House can, too.
Yeah.
Anything else from Mr. Potts, gentlemen?
I have nothing else today. Appreciate your legwork there.
We're just out of time, too, I see.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for your help in navigating around over there. I've been there quite a few times over the years, but every time I go over, you see something new, or you learn something new, you make new contacts, and I appreciate your help. Meeting Representative Lovett from Open Snohomish in particular was very interesting. He's
He's a good guy, and, you know, give me a heads up ahead of time if there's anybody in particular you'd like to see.
sure. Okay.
Sooner the better, so. Okay, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks much. Take care.
Thanks, Jim. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda this morning is public comment, and anybody is welcome to comment, but I think the only member of the public is Mr. Mullen. Care to comment on anything? No? Any advice for us? You okay with Tuesday mornings?
Tuesday works better.
Tuesday works better. There you go. There you go. That's good. All right. Well, not seeing any public comment, we'll move on to office business with payroll rosters, warrant registers, and the consent agenda.
We have just one set of fund expenditures in front of us this morning. 12 miscellaneous items, current expense, auditor O&M, jail commissary, solid waste, etc. Bottom line is $608,589.39, and Keith has looked at this, and Mr. Beaton and Macy signed it off.
Okay, well, with the signatures, we'll look at it, and mine's the next thing, so I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for fund expenditures. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. Any other bills this morning, Jeremy?
That is all there is in the folder this morning.
That's all there is this morning, okay. I notice we've got 5 items on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval and discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda 1 through 5.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as presented. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Just would like to state that there are really only 2 resolutions on there, and there's 3 commission meetings, so we're a pretty slow week with things coming on there, but for that reason, I don't have any discussion.
I have nothing.
Okay, I see that Mr. Sullivan from Human Services is in the audience. Just want to thank you for being here in case we had questions. Your packages are usually pretty thorough, and the absence of questions should be taken as a compliment, not disinterest.
All right, thank you.
Anything that you want to add before we vote?
No, I just wanted to be here. My office has a contract with DSD. We collect the 2% alcohol excise tax that goes directly towards prevention and treatment for substance-related disorders. And so previously that money had gone towards the crisis unit, but the county is no longer operating that, and so I'm looking for partners that those monies would fit well with, and ESD seemed like a very natural partner, so I've been working with them over the last couple of months on developing a contract to help with prevention.
Good. Well, thanks again for being here. Any other comments or questions from anybody? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved as presented. And I suppose we probably have time to go ahead and sign these, don't you think?
Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Cox, if that's okay if I ask what was on the second question. What's happening with the Mountain Illness program at this point? Update, please.
Kyle, if you wouldn't mind, how about coming up here, because it really is part of the official record, and I want to make sure that people on the listening can hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. And Commissioner Miller, are you referring to what's going on with BHO?
Yes.
Well, I think the last meeting that the last board of director meeting, there had been some talk about whether or not to move forward with just mid-adoption, which would be at the end of 2018, or to do the transition year. And I think my understanding is that there's been some communication with the healthcare authority over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I think that will be another discussion that will be had at the next Board of Directors meeting, and try and shore up how to move forward.
So this 8 or 9 counties that was involved, they were all supposed to 100% follow through with that and make a decision. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and at the I don't know, it was probably maybe 2 or 3 months ago. All the counties voted to do mid-adoption.
All of them did.
They did, and there are some time issues that could create problems for the mid-adoption with the transition year, and so that the healthcare authority has specific timelines. They have an RFP that will be going out in end of February, beginning of March, directed towards the managed care organizations, and the managed care organizations will that are interested in providing services in our region will apply to the RFP and go from there. But again, I think the concern with whether or not to do the transition year is centered around there's a lot of work involved with that.
That's one reason why I support
Right.
Wait until December. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
No, thanks. Let's note that there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about that in Olympia. There's so much focus on Hearst and Caroline's Hills and other stuff. And frankly, it's a little surprising because it's kind of a critical time as we're starting to run this thing up.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and the end of the year is going to come, even though we're just in January. The end of the year, my grandmother always told me that the older you get, the faster time moves. And she told me that when I was 18, I kind of laughed, and the older I get, the faster time seems to move. So, it's like, I agree with her. My grandma was wise.
Yeah. Unfortunate reality of being busy, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle.
We've got a stack of employee certificates. I think I'm going to hold those to the end of the meeting because I want to be able to pay attention instead of signing a bunch of those. Okay, next item is administration office business. Keith, do you have any topics for us?
I have any official business today?
Okay. Executive session for anything today? No.
I'd like to open the executive session today for approximately 15 minutes.
Okay.
Land use.
Let's
Remember that RCW, Keith?
yeah, let's give Keith a moment to look up the RCW, and then Commissioner Cook will ask you to introduce that. In the meantime, I'd like to point out under office business, I've had a request from a resident of Pasco, or I shouldn't say a request, but someone who's expressed interest in serving on the track advisory board. If memory serves, we had a conversation last fall, I think it was, about trying to fill the seats on the track advisory board. Well, we have an open seat for the unincorporated county. If I remember, we all agreed that every inch of Pasco is in Franklin County, and if we've got someone in the city who wants to serve, that we should be open to that. So, assuming that hasn't changed, I'm going to go ahead and have this individual submit an application. She lives in West Central Pasco. I know a little bit about her background. I think she'd be an excellent resource. She's been a manager middle manager in governmental organizations. She understands budgets and has also been a vendor and I think also a show promoter. She doesn't have any current activities like that that would conflict with being on the advisory board. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask her to submit an application and bring that back next week. Yes, Johnson.
would request a executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph C, real estate sale minimum price. And probably up to 20 minutes, 15 minutes?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Say 20 and we can come out.
Let's make it up to 20 minutes, and then we'll come out early if we're able, and I suspect, I know the subject, and I suspect we will be able to come out early. Commissioner Cook, anything else you want to say about this executive session?
Not at this time. We'll just, there'll be no decisions made afterwards, so there'll be,
Of course.
information at this point.
Okay. And I thought you were going to say no decisions during. I suppose we should open the possibility of a decision after. And with that, we'll go into executive session at approximately 9:25 and be back out as soon as possible. Yeah, it's only 13 minutes. Okay, recording is back on, the microphones are back on. Pausing for a moment to give people time to return if they're waiting in the hall. It doesn't appear that they are, so we'll proceed with our meeting. We've concluded our executive session a little early, and of course no action taken in that executive session. Next item here is to see if anybody else has any other administration or office business that they want to bring up to the board. Not hearing any. Public comment is next. Nobody in the audience, so that's not going to happen. Karen, anything for the board? Any guidance this week? Anything we need to do differently to make your life better? Tuesday still good for you? Okay. Keith?
Tuesday's good for me.
Okay. Anything else on the board before we adjourn?
Just I'll go ahead and do a summary of the Nevada National Security side, where I went on the meeting last week, and first day we had meetings with different people from different sides discussing the changing the definition of waste. And really, people were reluctant to change the legal definition of high-level waste because they were afraid that they may get something back that they don't want. And but possibly look at the administration to approach DOE, because this could save $25 billion to $100 billion for these projects to for DOE, if treated whether where they came from, then what is in it. But right now, it is it is defined that is where it came from. That's why Richmond or Hanford out there has problems being able to dispose their waste to these other sites. There was an attorney general from D.C. from Washington D.C. that stated that caution as of changing the law. So there's other things that were involved in it. RCRA, CERCRA with EPA, RCRA is a public law that created a framework where this stuff goes. So that was a full day of back and forth discussion, and then the following day was a tour of the Nevada National Security site, which is quite interesting of where their waste goes and what goes in there. Transuranic does not go there. It's low-level waste. So there was some interesting comments there, but I just wanted to give some summary, and I'll probably write a report on this or something, turn it in just so we have record of it. That would be all for me.
Okay, received an email during this meeting from our staff over in Public Works from Mr. Mendez, Robert Mendez, and it's emergency railroad crossing repair and self-landing road. And since a number of people listen to this recording, I'm going to go ahead and just read this short message, which is that there's an emergency railroad crossing repair / closure in place for self-landing road, southeast of Glade North Road, and north of West Vineyard Drive in Franklin County. And you can go to the county website to see a map of that particular location. But since it was time that we had a minute, I thought I'd go ahead and read that for anyone who's listening.
And does it say why, or did you just emergency closure?
It just said emergency closure. It said repair / closure, so I assume that there's some kind of damage been identified there, but there's no other details. Okay, last call for any other comments.
Heading over tomorrow morning for Olympia for Transportation Improvement Board.
Okay. Well, it's no meeting Wednesday, so you'll be able to travel at a safe schedule. Last week when I went over for LSC, it was a bit of a pinch after the board meeting, getting over the pass. Fortunately, the weather wasn't too bad, but coming back, I actually went through the gorge because it was at night and snowing pretty hard in the pass. And I thought, after 8 or 10 hours on the hill, I'm not sure I want to drive the pass at night in a snowstorm.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I brought up, supporting this change, because last couple of years, when they've had these legislative receptions with the other representative senators coming in, get away from a long meeting and adverse weather on the pass, and I've missed probably half of those receptions because of that.
Yeah.
One accident on I-5 could hold you up 2-3 hours.
Oh.
It's not.
I don't know if it's weighted accidents on I-5 anymore to hold you up. It's just.
If you get delayed just enough by a Wednesday meeting, it actually puts you in the I-5 traffic coming off of 18. I think it took, I forget exactly how long, but it took more than 2 hours to get from the intersection of 18 and I-5 down to Olympia, 2.5 hours, which is crazy. Okay, hearing no other business, we are adjourned.